The dining room sparkled with Christmas decorations, but the atmosphere felt like a business meeting. Dad had sent a formal email 2 weeks ago. Important family announcement, attendance mandatory. My brother Derek sat at Dad's right hand in a full suit, practically vibrating with anticipation. His wife Amanda kept squeezing his arm and whispering. They already knew what was coming. I sat across from them in jeans and a sweater, next to my husband Michael. I'd worked at Harrison Manufacturing for 8 years after college. Started in quality control, became operations manager, streamlined the supply chain, reduced waste by 30%, implemented automation systems that doubled productivity. Then 3 years ago I'd left to work at Techdyne Solutions, a manufacturing software company. Dad had barely spoken to me since. Dad stood tapping his wine glass. I've been running Harrison Manufacturing for 37 years. It's time to think about succession. Here we go. Derek has shown tremendous dedication to the family business. He understands what it means to be a Harrison. The implication was clear. I'd abandoned the family by choosing my own path. Dad pulled out a leather folder. Effective January 1st, Derek will become CEO of Harrison Manufacturing. Amanda squealed. Mom dabbed fake tears. Derek shook Dad's hand like they were sealing a merger, not celebrating Christmas. Congratulations, son. You've earned this. Then Dad looked at me. Emma, I know you've made different choices. Chosen a different path. He pulled out his checkbook and wrote with his fountain pen. The check slid across the table. $5,000. Consider it an apology for not being able to include you in the succession plan. $5,000. For 8 years of transforming his operations. Derek smirked. That's generous, Dad. Emma can put it toward that condo she's been eyeing. We own our house, Michael said quietly. Oh right. The little starter home. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. 3 times. 5 times. 7 times. Aren't you going to thank Dad? Mom prompted. I picked up the check. For services rendered in the memo line. Thank you, I said flatly. You know, if you'd stayed at Harrison things might have been different, Dad continued. But you wanted to build someone else's dream. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I finally pulled it out. 7 missed calls from Richard Chin, my attorney. 3 from James Volkov, my investment banker. 1 text from Richard. Board vote completed. Acquisition approved. You are now majority shareholder of Harrison Manufacturing. Call immediately. I read it 3 times. Emma, it's rude to check your phone at dinner, Mom chided. 6 months ago, I'd approached 3 private equity firms with an acquisition proposal. Harrison Manufacturing was undervalued and poorly managed at the board level. Dad had refused every strategic recommendation I'd made before leaving, called my automation proposals too risky, rejected my supply chain innovations as unnecessary. So I'd positioned myself to save the company he wouldn't let me help. I'd spent 3 years at Techdyne learning manufacturing software, networking with industry leaders, studying corporate acquisitions. 6 months ago, I'd assembled a consortium of investors to acquire Harrison Manufacturing. The outside board members Dad had been forced to add when he took institutional investment 5 years ago had been quietly concerned about succession. Derek was decent operationally but lacked strategic vision. They'd been looking for alternatives. I'd given them one. I need to take this call, I stood. Emma, we're in the middle of dinner, Mom protested. I walked to Dad's study, Michael following. I called Richard back. Tell me this is real. Congratulations, Emma. You now own 51% of Harrison Manufacturing. Board voted unanimously to accept your acquisition offer. You're the new majority shareholder and chairman of the board. My hands shook. And Derek. His CEO appointment required board approval, which they're not giving. They want you in operational control immediately. I hung up and looked at Michael. I own my father's company. Holy shit, he whispered. We returned to the dining room. Derek was holding court about his vision for Harrison's future. A future that would never happen. I sat down and picked up Dad's check. $5,000. I folded it in half and tucked it in my pocket. Actually, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. The room went silent. I've spent 6 months putting together an acquisition proposal for Harrison Manufacturing. Today the board voted to approve it. As of 4 p.m. I own 51% of the company's shares. I'm the new majority shareholder. You could have heard a pin drop. That's not funny, Derek said. It's not a joke. I partnered with Sterling Investment Group and 2 institutional investors. We acquired shares from minority shareholders who wanted to exit. The board approved it because they believe I have the strategic vision to scale the company properly. Dad's face went pale. The board wouldn't. They did. The deal closed this afternoon. But Derek is Sue. Amanda sputtered. His appointment required board approval. Which won't happen. The board wants me in operational control. Derek stood, voice rising. You can't just steal the company. I didn't steal anything. I made a legitimate acquisition offer. The board accepted. This is how business works, Derek. I've given 12 years. And I'm not firing you. You're good at operations. But you're not ready to be CEO of a company that needs to triple in size to remain competitive. Dad found his voice. How did you even get that kind of money? Institutional investors' money. That's how acquisitions work. Sterling saw the value you couldn't see. They believed in my strategic plan. Your strategic plan, Dad repeated numbly. The one you rejected 3 years ago. The automation upgrades, supply chain optimization, tech partnerships. Sterling agreed it could transform Harrison from a $50 million regional player into a $200 million national competitor within 5 years. Mom gripped the table. But family? Legacy? I'm preserving the legacy. If Derek had taken over, Harrison would have been acquired by a larger competitor within 3 years. You'd have lost control entirely. This way the Harrison name stays. We just do it my way now. You had no right, Dad said weakly. I had every right. You gave it to me when you brought in outside investors 5 years ago. You diluted your own control and those investors wanted an exit. I gave them one. Derek paced. This is betrayal. This is business. You said we're Harrisons who make real, tangible things? Well, I just made a real acquisition. I secured financing and executed a strategic takeover. That's what leaders do. But at Christmas? Mom's voice was plaintive. The board vote was today. I didn't schedule it. Amanda was crying. This is Derek's moment. His moment was being born male, I said quietly. I had to actually accomplish something. Dad stared at the check. $5,000. An afterthought. The board meeting is December 27th at 9 a.m. I'd like you both there. Derek, I meant it, you're good at operations. Stay on, report to me. We'll need your expertise as we scale. Report to you, he repeated hollowly. Yes. To me. Your little sister who writes code instead of making real things. Michael coughed to hide a laugh. I'll fight this, Dad said, defeated. You'll lose. The board voted unanimously. Everyone except you and Derek wanted this. Because everyone else could see Harrison needed to evolve or die. I stood. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The turkey was perfect. As we left, I pulled out Dad's check and set it on the entry table. I don't need this. But thank you for the apology. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled. Michael opened the car door looking dazed. That was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. I can't believe it worked, I said, hands still shaking. Emma, you executed a 51% hostile takeover on Christmas Day. That's not luck. That's strategy. Richard called again. Press release goes out tomorrow. Prepare for media attention. The next morning, the announcement went out. Harrison Manufacturing announces strategic acquisition and new leadership. Industry publications picked it up immediately. Dad called at 2 p.m. The board really voted unanimously? Yes. Long silence. Why? Because I showed them a path forward. Because I have the technical expertise Derek doesn't. Because I spent 3 years learning while he learned the same procedures you taught him. You could have come to me. I tried for 8 years. You dismissed every proposal. You made it clear the company was Derek's future, not mine. Another silence. Sterling doesn't back amateurs. If they believed in your plan, they believed in the numbers. And the numbers don't lie. On December 27th, I walked into the boardroom as chairman. Dad sat at the opposite end, symbolic title only. Derek slouched, barely containing resentment. But the board members looked at me with respect. They'd seen my strategic plan. Let's begin, I said. First item. Q1 Capital Investments in Automation Infrastructure. As I presented the modernization plan, I caught Dad watching me with an expression I'd never seen. Not quite pride but recognition. Understanding that his daughter had become what he'd tried to mold his son into. Derek cornered me afterward. I don't forgive you. I don't need forgiveness. Decide if you're staying. If you do, you report to me. No undermining, no sabotage. He stared. The operations team respects me. I know. That's why I want you to stay. But on my terms. Not Dad's. Not yours. Mine. 3 days later, Derek accepted. 6 months later, Harrison announced a major partnership with Tekdyne. Stock price doubled. Dad let me run board meetings. Derek stopped second-guessing my decisions. And the $5,000 check? I framed it for my office. Not as a reminder of the insult, but of the moment I stopped waiting for permission and took control of my own legacy. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's transforming it into something better than they ever imagined.